Today, we're going to be joined by Malcolm Norskin, who's part of our partner network out of Australia, Melbourne, I believe. And it is the Xero accounts and how to accommodate multiple accounts within a single instance of click data. Today, I'll be joined by Srineve as well as Malcolm. And my name is Rob Wood. I'm the Vice President of Sales. During our webinar, you will be able to see multiple slides as well as the demo itself. There are multiple opportunities for you to reach out, whether you'd like to ask questions or if you have questions or concerns about the audio or the video. Please note that there is an opportunity in the bottom right-hand corner. A few words about Click Data. We're the world's first 100% cloud-based BI solution. We have partners all over the world, including SOVD, which is part of Malcolm, and he will reach out here. He'll be joining us shortly. One of the most wonderful things about us is that we've got 4.5 out of 5 stars with G2 Crowd and Capterra, which makes us one of the most popular business intelligence and data visualization programs on the market. We're pretty much an easy solution. We believe in connecting to your data source, doesn't matter what that data is. Run it through the system where you can do data blending, joining, and cleansing, and all the other the tools you need to actually create that solution to run through the visualization tools and to share it with all of your customers, both internal and out. During today's agenda, you're going to learn how to connect to multiple Xero files on Click Data, how to consolidate data, and how to actually use different sorts of data that comes from Xero and run that through your Click Data instance. What you're seeing right now is an actual end result of the Click Data Xero solution. What you're able to see here is running an entire business, even those that might have multiple accounting instances, and be able to actually enjoy the opportunity to know what your data is telling you. Malcolm, if you're ready this time, I think we'd love to actually hear from where you're at and what the solution can offer us.
Great, thanks, Rob, and thanks for the introduction, and welcome everybody to the webinar. Today, I'm just going to take you through a very brief view of Click Data, what it can do, and how we would go about setting up a dashboard that looks something like this. I'm going to jump into the live instance of this dashboard and show you what it does and interact with it. And then we're going to go ahead after that and actually connect to a Xero instance, bring some data in, and set up a data set that can drive one of the widgets that appears on this dashboard. So I'm going to flick over. This is my login screen to my Click Data instance.
We'll go ahead and wait just a minute to let that scroll up. While we're waiting for the Click Data instance to render, please keep in mind that at the bottom right of your screen, Srineve will be joining us and being able to take any of your questions, comments, or concerns about the video or the quality of the content. Looks like we're ready to go. Thanks, Malcolm.
Perfect. So I'm going to jump into that dashboard that you just saw an image of, and just give you a quick overview of what it does. And it was actually built for a client who was looking to manage their working capital in one dashboard where they'd be able to look at their accounts payable and accounts receivable, see what bills were due payable, what kind of cash flow was available off the back of that accounts receivable and accounts payable position, and also be able to analyze what's overdue and what's current with regard to that. So for today's demo, what we're going to be doing is actually building the data to drive this particular widget with this table. What the table shows us is a consolidation of Company A and Company B's accounts payable and accounts receivable. We have the ability to switch between looking at whether it's a debtor or creditor view. So we can switch over. At the moment, we're currently looking at debtors. We can switch over to creditors, and it will re-render the dashboard and give us the creditor position. Similarly, we're now currently looking at our current creditors, the 6,802. We can use a switch to flick over and look at our overdue creditors, and flick back to debtors, and you'll see that we can we can see the data position. And similarly, we can filter out and look at an aggregation of company A and company B, or we may only want to look at company A's position, and it would filter out and give us that position. So we can go back to current debtors, and we're able to then drill through and actually see the number of invoices by debtor and what they currently owe us. And we can actually double click, and that'll give us an actual drill through capability to see the underlying transactions that come from the Xero data. And that can be exported and analyzed, outside of the system if required. And that's entirely up to the user and how they want to set up the dashboard. Similarly, we have a dashboard that gives us a cash flow position on this particular position of the debtors. We also have an aging of the debtor days, and we have a bubble chart which shows us a graphical representation of our largest to smallest debtors across the date range. So I'm going to jump in now, and I'm going to show you how we're going to set this up. So I've set up an environment with the same dashboard, and you can see over here we don't have that particular drill through table widget available over here. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and actually build that and put together the data sets available for that. So very quickly, just to give you an overview of the application, we have our data warehouse with our fully integrated dashboard reporting builder and viewer. We have full end-to-end automation, is that once you've set up your data, you've set up your dashboards, you have the ability to automate the retrieval of the data from the dashboard, from the data sets, sources into the data warehouse. And you also have the ability to publish those dashboards out to users on a schedule, whether it be by PDF, image, PowerPoint, or what's called a live link. All our data and all our dashboards are controlled on a security layer, and you control for all users exactly what data and what dashboards they have the ability to see and interact with and edit. And we have fully built-in support. So you have an issue, you raise your support ticket, that is all built through and tracked through the application for you. So I'm going to jump in and go to the data warehouse to start, because this is the natural starting position of building any click data solution. And we're going to start with a connection. And just to show you, we go in and we build a connection to Xero. And you can see I have multiple Xero companies connected, and I can connect as many as I want within the application. So each company has its own connector. You authenticate, and that gets authorized on the click data side. So you'll see if we go into the connection, you'll notice that this has been authenticated, and we have the standard Xero demo company now connected to our instance of click data. So what I've done for this example, I've also connected another company into the instance, and we're now going to put the data together for those two companies. So at the moment, I've already pulled down company A's invoice data table, and we're going to now pull down company B's invoice table. So we scroll down. These are all the connectors we currently have available that we've authenticated and set up. We go and find our company B Xero connector, and what this does is it connects to Xero, and it shows us all the available data tables that we can connect to from Xero. Now we can pull down and select the data table we want, and that's going to give us our invoice table that we're going to use for our dashboard. Or we can write our own custom SQL query, which in this instance I'm going to do, because just from a ability for us to have the different company, the data tagged with the individual company name, I'm going to insert a field into the data called company from the invoices table. And I'll just validate that. And you'll notice there that, and I've just got to add the rest of the data, which comma star. And you'll notice now that my data set now has a field name in it called company B, which then tags every row of data within the data set with the company name. And I then have my data table available. I click next, it'll give me the opportunity to now name the data set. So I'll call this Xero Company B invoices. And we click next to now extract the data out. Sorry, I'm going to just call this demo. And we'll try again. And this has now gone to Xero. It's now retrieving the data, and we land up now with a table called Company B Invoices Demo within our environment. Now, we could quite easily put these onto the dashboard and show the data, but our widgets drive off one data set. So what we have to now do is actually fuse or consolidate the data into a new data source, which is a unified data set of the two different data tables, Company A's invoices and Company B's invoices. So we have a feature within ClickData called a fusion, and I'm going to go ahead and create a fusion of these two tables. And what it does, the fusion, is it lines up and joins the rows from each table into one large data set. And you can see here that these green ticks show that the fields map one-to-one. And because Xero has a standardized schema of data, you'll see that all the fields then match up accordingly. And we have 1,174 rows from Company A and 85 rows from Company B, making a unified larger data set table for us. So once we have the data set built, we then also want to add some smarts to the data in that our table or our dashboard has the number of days that the invoice is outstanding and some other custom calculations on it. So what we can then do is take this data set and create what's called a view of that data. And the view is probably the transformation piece, probably the aspect when you see what the view does. It's very similar to all the manipulations that you would do to data within an Excel environment. The difference being in the ClickData environment, we create a consistent calculation methodology in that every row of data that comes into the data warehouse will go through the cycle of this data cleansing or this data transformation process. So for example, I want to now go in and add a calculation into my data set that gives me a field that gives me the debtor days. So I have these tools available to me, drag and drop tools available to me on the left-hand side here. I'm going to add a new calculated column into the data set. And I'm going to call that field debtor days. And I'm going to place that, I can place it anywhere within the data set. So maybe I'll put it after my date of my invoice. And I'm just going to go grab, we're going to do a formula for that. So we can go into our formula writer. And we're going to do a date difference calculation. And that calculation is going to be by day. And our start date is going to be the date of the invoice. So we go down and find our field called date. And our end date is going to be the current system type, date, and time. Okay. So that's going to give us now the number of days between from when the invoice was issued to the current date and time. And when we're looking at this dashboard, we are only going to be looking at outstanding invoices. So therefore, we're not concerned with payment, fully paid, and invoices that don't fall into that criteria. So by adding that calculation now into the data set, it's just going to re-render. We're just going to scroll across, and you'll notice then if we look into our data, next to our days, you'll notice there that we now have a field called debtor days, which gives us the difference. And this is calculating for every row. We would then need to just filter out and look for authorized, for any invoice with the status of authorized, which is a status within Xero, which signifies that the invoice has been issued, but it has not yet been paid. So we're then going to filter for only authorized invoices. And we can preview that filter. And it will now filter out the data for us accordingly. So So there's a number of different other tools that we can do to cleanse and clean and replace data within the data set. So, they're endless in terms of the possibilities, and I don't want to go into too many right now, but I'll just save that data set up for us and move back to the dashboard. So within the data warehouse, I've now constructed a data set which we now want to represent as a graphical view of the data, which is the fusion of company A and company B's invoices with the addition of the debtor days. So if I jump back into my dashboard builder, so I go to my dashboards, here's the dashboard where we want to now add the new widget to, which is called a drill through table. So this is our dashboard builder. It's all drag and drop. All the colors, formatting, it's all can be controlled by the user, and you can set up the dashboard look and feel exactly to your requirements. So in this instance, I'm going to grab a drill through table, which is the widget representation of the data that I want for this particular dashboard. I drag it onto the dashboard working area, and immediately it will come up and ask me to select the data source that I want to use for this particular widget. So in this instance, we've gone and built that view of that fusion between the two different data sets. And on that particular dashboard, I want to have I then have all the fields available to me that I can then represent within the dashboard. So from a value column, I want to see the amount due. I also want to see my debtor day position. If you see here over here, the field that we created called debtor days is then available for us for that particular customer. And then we can go and have a look, and we can bring in textual-based elements like the current tracking code status of a particular invoice. So I can drop in the tracking code, and I also want to put in my contact so I can see who the debtor currently belongs to, who the invoice currently belongs to. And obviously, this is the field name that comes out of Xero. We may want to have actually the tracking code name, which is the category. We can just call it category in this particular instance, and we can rename any one of the fields that we have over here. So you can see straight away, I now have the ability to drill through, see the invoice by the category, see who the contact person is with regard, or the name of the customer or the debtor or the creditor, the amount due, and the number of days that particular invoice has been outstanding. I can also add additional fields in with the invoice numbers, etc., etc. Just to show you a couple of the other options I have with regard to this widget, I can also add a summary view at the very bottom, which is a sum up of the amounts due. I could do an average debtor days if I wanted to. I can then add some filtering options, which now links the widget that I've just created to some of the other elements that I have on the dashboard. So for example, we have a switch, which switches us between different types. So the different types being the debtor and creditors. So if you have a look in the data that we get from Xero, we have accounts receivable and accounts payable. So what we've done is we've built a switch on the dashboard called type switch. And by you flicking the switch, it changes the nature of whether we're looking at debtor or creditors in this particular example. Similarly, we also have a field in our data that we built earlier when we were creating the data called company. And similarly, we have a company selector. We have an input widget, which is called company. And we're able to then use that company widget to then flick between the different companies to produce that consolidated or unconsolidated position of the data. And then finally, just to give you a view of some of the formatting, you can then flick over to your formatting tab, and you have the ability to change background colors, the text colors. You can put a table, a header into your table. So if we wanted to change the background color of this particular widget, we can come in over here and we can set up any hex code color and build in that background color. And put that into the the widget and put all the fonts as white. That's just a demonstration. We can change the header. So once we finish the formatting, and you would then be able to then size your widget. You can place it anywhere on the dashboard, and you can format it accordingly. Now, as you'll see, because we've linked the filters between customer or company and company on that data set, when I now select this widget, I'm able to then filter the data set that I've just created, or this widget that I've just created. I'm able to then filter it by the selectors that I have on the dashboard. So, and that's very much a feature across all our widgets in the application, is that they can all be driven and they can all talk to one another, either via formula or via the filtering that I've just spoken about now, which is very powerful in that we're able to then create different views of the data and different visibilities of the widgets based on selectors that you may add to the particular dashboard. And once you're happy and you're finished, you can then go ahead and save your dashboard. Now, you can then go back to your builder, and that dashboard is then available now for your users. And by selecting your little security tab, you'd then be able to go ahead and add a particular team or user to that particular dashboard to allow them to have access to and see that dashboard. Similarly, we also have the ability to share our dashboards via what's called a live link. And this is quite a great feature in that you don't have to be a particular user of ClickData to access a dashboard. You can share a dashboard to a third party or to another user via what's called a live link, which is a web-enabled URL that will enable that user to actually view that dashboard within their browser and fully interact with the dashboard without actually being a user of ClickData. And it's great where you're looking to give a portal to an external client to see some data. It's a very useful tool, and we use it quite a bit with some of our customers. And they'd be given a URL, and they'd have full access to that dashboard through that process. So that's just a very, very quick view of building the dashboard from connecting the data, bringing the data through, and consolidating the data. There's a lot more features, there's very rich features, and there's a lot to learn within the application, but it's very intuitive, and it just requires time just to play around and get your feel for what you're trying to do. And I think that's the biggest feature within dashboarding, is understanding exactly what you want to see as you're building your dashboards. I also prepared a couple of other dashboards just to show you which is another useful application of using the Xero data. And what this dashboard does is it just allows a very quick view of the ledger without having to go in and actually run the P&L reports and run the reports directly out of Xero. So what this dash basically shows us is a P&L position for a particular month. So we're currently looking at the month of June 19. It shows us our ledger accounts. It shows us which accounts make up. So if I go in and I click on my direct costs ledger, it shows me which accounts make up. If I click on my expense ledger, it shows me all the accounts that make up that particular roll-up of expenses. And then what I'm able to do is actually click on an individual account category or account, and it actually gives me the transactions that have been processed through that ledger in that particular month. So it's pretty quick. You can actually understand what's going on in your ledger, understand what's going on. You can consolidate, as I said, consolidate this data across multiple Xero ledgers and be able to see a consolidated position of transactions in those particular ledgers without having to go into the actual applications and switch between two different Xero instances. It can all be done through the dashboard and interacted with through the dashboard. And then the final dashboard I want to show you is a quick view of how we actually use HubSpot, which is a CRM system, to track lifetime value of particular customers. So we connected to HubSpot, which is a cloud-based CRM system. You can see the traditional, flow of the pipeline through the process, where each deal is at and which stage it's currently at across the top over here. And then we can see how many deals have been created on a weekly basis through HubSpot. We can look at our Xero invoicing on a weekly basis coming out of Xero. But then on the left-hand side, what we've done is actually join the data via the customer's name. And we can actually see from a lifetime value perspective, what was the value of the original opportunities that we created within HubSpot, and what have we currently invoiced that customer through Xero. And we can put those two data sets together and actually analyze and have a look. And this is just the top 10 position, but this really shows us that this particular customer, we believed we had opportunities of $22,000 with them. So far, we've only achieved 4,500 of that. So just another way that we can bring data from multiple data sets, different systems even, not only just Xero and Xero, but different systems, bring it together and actually provide a meaningful analysis of that data and give meaningful information out to the sales team or to the operations team to allow them to take action or follow up on exceptions and deal with issues that may arise within your business. So as I said, thank you very much for your time. That's just a very, very quick overview of what is possible with Click Data. We call it the imagination tool because anything you can really think of, we can probably do with your data, and we can find solutions to business problems that you have that will be far more cost efficient than having to go out and build some sort of bespoke system around those problems. And I'll hand you back to Rob. Thanks very much.
Malcolm, thank you very much. This was actually pretty informative. Right there at the end, we had a comment that someone had said that finally I can actually hold the salespeople accountable. Being able to actually see the accounting and CRM data on the same dashboard is pretty powerful. So that's fantastic. Before we get into other questions, I want to give people time to let them know that if they would like, they can ask questions to the bottom right. There's a chat panel. We do have Sri Neve, who is Click Data's head of professional services. He will be helping us answer some questions. The first question we have is, how often can I update the data from Xero so that it is reflected on our dashboard? Sri?
Thank you, Rob. I just want to thank Malcolm for taking out the time for the demo. Clearly, there's a lot of financial reports that you can create on Click Data, not just using multiple sources on one single dashboard, but also creating your own customized dashboard. And I think you put it in a great way that it's the imagination tool. So just go ahead and build whatever you want to build. In terms of the question, Rob, how frequently can you update the data from Xero? It's not just restricted to Xero. So any data set that you connect onto Click Data, you can update it every minute. We set up an automation on the tool, and every minute Click Data can go back and keep pulling the new data so that your financials, your reports, your sales reports are all up to date, and you can keep on tracking that on an ongoing basis. So this is the section where you can just go to the schedule, add a new schedule, and go ahead and add new schedules as you need.
Thank you. Another question we have has to do with managing accounts. They ask, I have multiple clients. Do I have to have an account for each client?
No, you don't. Even at the stage during the demo, Malcolm connected to two separate companies. So you can connect to any number of accounts and consolidate all these accounts into one single place. For your external clients, if you want to give them restrictive access, you can just give them restrictive access to one single account. And internally, if you want to monitor all the accounts, you can manage all the accounts together on one single dashboard.
Awesome. The last question, we're still leaving it open if anybody would like to ask, but the one last question we do have is, do you have a mobile app? And if so, is it both for Android and iOS?
Great question, Rob. Yes, we do have a mobile app. All the dashboards that you end up creating on Click Data can be shared using a live link. So not only you can access them directly through your mobile browsers, but we also have a native mobile app for iOS users and Android users. You can also install the app. Just go to the App Store, search for Click Data, install the app, log in, and you have access to all your dashboards directly within the app. Not just access to the normal dashboards. When you're creating a dashboard within Click Data, you can actually specify how the mobile view should look like. In certain cases, it might make sense to display different indicators on the mobile, whereas on the desktop, you might want to display different indicators. So you can configure each dashboard on how it needs to be displayed on mobile and how it needs to be displayed on the desktop as well.
I want to thank Malcolm for joining us, putting this whole thing together. Sheree for taking the time to help us with answer the questions. This episode was recorded. Everybody on the line will get a link to the recording so you can reference it back. Not only that, but if you go to www.clicktata.com, you will see the opportunity to register for a trial if you'd like. You can also ask us any questions. We are there locally in Australia, New Zealand with SLVD, and we're also worldwide. We have offices in the United States, France, Toronto, and Latin America. We're more than happy to answer any of your questions, allow you for you to have a trial, and also provide some coaching and training if you would like to get up to speed. We appreciate everybody's time. And if we don't speak to you, have a great rest of your week and weekend. Thank you very much, and thanks for joining.